Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lean In Leaders. Shad, my friend, what are we going to talk about today?
Hey, Larry. Always enjoy sharing some time and a little bit of knowledge with each other. So, today I thought we would talk about the practice of authenticity in leadership.
Oh, that's a biggie. So, Shad, when I think about authenticity and authentic leadership, I think about a few
Hmm.
things. I think about the act of saying and doing what I believe, but
Hmm.
there's this element where there's congruency between those two things. So I know we talk about authenticity in leadership a lot today because we're looking for this in our leaders.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
talk about, and please tell us, like, what does authentic leadership actually look like?
Yeah. So, authentic leadership is this leadership style, right? Where leaders demonstrate high levels of integrity and self awareness, right? Um, Authentic leaders are driven by their principles rather than short term business success or financial success. Authentic leaders look at their inner sense of values and connection to lead their teams. So they create collaboration in this approachable environment, which in turn, by doing so, boosts the team's engagement and production.
Yeah, I love how you describe that because it's about what's happening internally, but with other people, right? So authentic
Hmm.
leaders, what I heard you say is that they're
Yeah.
really invested in people and purpose, but really important, it's over their own personal interest, their own personal success per se. So how does a leader
Yeah.
actually, right? So how does a leader practice becoming more authentic? Like how do we build this muscle around this important skill?
Yeah. It's a great question. There are several things that researchers have identified as common areas that practices people see in authentic leaders. First of all, they're committed to continual self improvement. They're aware of what their limitations are. They work on developing those limitations, not for themselves necessarily, but in order to be better at what they do and to serve their teams better. So they look at that as their objective to be better in what they do. They're also self-aware. They're concerned with not come, but they're concerned with how they show up for their teams and if they're invested in their team's needs and if they're fulfilling those team's needs. So, in other words, they're concerned about how they show up and serve others first versus how their teams may serve them as a leader, right?
Okay.
Third, they're disciplined. So a lot of us are aware of what we need to work on. Trust me, I know what I need to work on, and I know where I can show up better for other people. But what I don't do oftentimes in my authentic leadership is dedicate the time or the resource in improving those things. So authentic leaders who really succeed, they seek out that feedback and they look to improve on that skill set. 1% improvement every day for those things where they're lacking or where they're not serving well.
Okay.
They're missions and values driven, not the organization's missions and values necessarily, but their own personal sense of values. And they seek out leadership opportunities or organizations that support those values. So they align themselves with companies where they feel they can be authentic and be true to who they are. And then finally, they inspire those that work for them and work with them. Authenticity, when we're authentic and we show up as leaders authentically, we inspire others to be a better version of themselves.
Oh,
So a true
okay.
authentic leader can really validate their authenticity when they see that their teams are striving to be more or to do better.
That's great. That is super well said. So let me make sure I got this and kind of recap. So
Yeah.
basically, if you distill this down, it's really about a very high level of self awareness and this
Hmm.
degree of growth, right? This inner development growth, because there's a lot of
Yep.
reflection
Self
required in
improvement. Yep.
authentic leadership and becoming more authentic.
Yep.
And you really have to want to inspire and help others grow. That seems like it's a really big part of
Yeah.
that. And I want to double click. I
Yeah.
love when you said this idea of this 1% better. I almost want to think about that as a concept, and it helps us in our leading by values.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. With a lot of my clients, the whole focus, kind of my practice with a lot of my clients, is focusing on being 1% better every day. No matter what it is, just pick one thing and let's do that a little bit better. And being more authentic, what a great goal to aspire to, right? So if you note, nowhere in those skills, nowhere in those traits do we talk about inauthenticity, do we talk about outcomes or benchmarks or KPIs or profit margins. Those things come as a result of doing the internal work and blazing that path for others to show up at their best.
Oh, that is fantastic, Shad. Shad, these are absolutely fantastic insights. And this level of skill building, though, really does require what we sometimes call deep work. But this is probably one of the really important
Yeah.
skills and muscle tissue for us to develop as it relates to becoming a more effective leader. So I know that we're going to be digging deeper into this in future casts. So
Oh,
let's
sure. Yeah.
put a pin in that, make sure we do that. But we also want to ask you, listeners, do us a
Yeah.
favor. If you found this information beneficial, as we often ask you, please share it, please like it, and also make sure that
Please.
you're checking back soon as we continue to release more content on being your most effective leader and remind you to lean in, leaders.